What happens when a country music legend walks onto a talk show expecting a friendly conversation, only to find herself in the middle of an ambush that pushes her to the breaking point? Today, we're diving into one of the most shocking moments in daytime television history, when Reba McEntire, known for her grace and professionalism, reached her absolute limit on Today with Jenna and Friends. The tension, the uncomfortable silences, and the moment everything fell apart, it all happened live. But before we get into what sparked this explosive confrontation, make sure you subscribe and drop a comment below telling me your thoughts on what we're about to uncover. The interview started innocently enough. Reba walked onto the set with that trademark smile, settling into the guest chair across from Jenna Bush-Hager and her co-hosts. The applause died down, and Jenna opened with what seemed like standard talk show banter. Jenna leaned forward, her smile bright. "So Reba, we are so excited to have you here. You've been in the industry for, what, over 4 decades now?" Reba nodded, her hands folded neatly in her lap. "That's right, it's been quite a journey." "For decades," Jenna repeated, exchanging a glance with her co-host. "That's incredible. You've really seen it all, haven't you? The industry has changed so much since you started." "It has," Reba agreed. "But good music is good music, no matter what era you're in." One of the other hosts, a younger woman sitting to Jenna's left, chimed in. "Speaking of different eras, I have to ask, do you ever feel like country music has kind of left you behind? I mean, when you listen to what's topping the charts now, it's so different from your style." Reba's smile tightened just slightly, but her voice remained even. "I wouldn't say it's left me behind. Music evolves, and that's natural. I've evolved too." "Right, but your recent album," Jenna interjected, "it didn't exactly perform like your earlier work, did it?" "The numbers were, well, they weren't what people expected from Reba McEntire." There was a pause. Reba shifted in her seat. "Every album has its own journey. I'm proud of the work I put into it, and my fans have been incredibly supportive." Sure, the younger host said, waving her hand dismissively. "But we're talking about commercial success here. I mean, let's be honest. When was the last time you had a #1 hit?" Reba's jaw tightened. "I've had a long career filled with #1s. I'm grateful for every single one of them. But that's the past, isn't it?" Jenna pressed, leaning even further forward. "We're talking about now, about relevance in today's market. Do you think there's still a place for your kind of country music?" "My kind of country music," Reba repeated slowly, her eyes narrowing slightly. "What exactly do you mean by that?" "Oh, you know," Jenna said with a laugh that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Traditional country, the kind that, let's face it, doesn't really connect with younger audiences anymore. My daughters, they listen to Morgan Wallen, Luke Combs, people like that. When I mention your name, they're like, who?" Reba's smile had completely disappeared now. "Well, Jenna, I'm sorry your daughters aren't familiar with my work. Maybe that says more about what they're being exposed to than about the quality of the music itself." The atmosphere in the studio shifted. Even the audience seemed to sense the tension building. The third host, who had been quiet until now, decided to jump in. "Reba, I think what we're trying to get at is whether you feel like you're still relevant. I mean, you're touring smaller venues now, right? Not the big arenas like you used to." Reba's voice took on an edge. "I choose my venues based on the experience I want to give my fans. Intimacy matters. Connection matters. It's not always about size, but it is about filling seats," Jenna countered. "And from what I've heard, some of your recent shows haven't exactly sold out. That must be hard for someone who used to pack stadiums." "Where are you getting your information?" Reba asked, her voice quiet but firm. "Oh, it's public knowledge," Jenna said breezily. "Ticket sales are tracked. We do our research before our guests come on." Reba took a deep breath, visibly trying to maintain her composure. "I've had a very successful tour. My fans show up, they sing along to every word, and we have a wonderful time together. That's what matters to me." The younger host leaned in with a smirk. "But don't you think it's a little sad? I mean, you're a legend, Reba. You should be able to fill those big venues. The fact that you can't anymore, doesn't that tell you something?" "What exactly should it tell me?" Reba asked, her voice dangerously calm. "That maybe it's time to reconsider your approach," Jenna suggested. "Or maybe even consider, I don't know, stepping back, letting the new generation take over." Reba stared at her for a long moment. "You invited me here to tell me I should retire." No, Jenna said quickly, though her smile suggested otherwise. "We're just having an honest conversation about the state of your career. Isn't that what interviews are for?" "Honest conversations," Reba said slowly, "require respect, and I'm not feeling a lot of that right now." "Oh, come on," the younger host said with a laugh. "We're not being disrespectful. We're being real. Someone has to be real," Reba repeated. "All right then, let's be real. You've done nothing but question my relevance, my success, and my place in this industry since I sat down. You've disguised insults as questions and acted like you're doing me some kind of favor by pointing out what you perceive as my failures." Jenna held up her hands defensively. "We're just asking the questions our audience wants to know. Are you Reba challenged? Or are you trying to create a moment? Because this feels less like journalism and more like a setup." The studio went very quiet. The other hosts exchanged nervous glances. I think you're being a little sensitive, Jenna said, her tone condescending. We ask tough questions to all our guests. Tough questions are fine, Reba said, her voice rising slightly. Disrespect is not. There's a difference between journalism and just being mean for the sake of it. We are not being mean, the younger host protested. We're being honest about what everyone's thinking. Everyone, Reba asked, or just you? The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. Jenna tried to regain control of the interview. Look, Reba, I think maybe we got off on the wrong foot here. You think? Reba's sarcasm was unmistakable. Let's talk about something else, Jenna suggested, glancing at her notes. Your personal life? You've been married, what, twice? And both marriages ended in divorce. Do you think your career ambitions made it hard to maintain those relationships? Reba's eyes went wide. Excuse me? It's a fair question, Jenna insisted. A lot of women struggle to balance career and family. Do you have any regrets about the choices you made? My personal relationships, Reba said slowly, are not up for discussion, especially not in this hostile environment you've created. Hostile? Jenna laughed incredulously. We're having a conversation. This is not a conversation, Reba shot back. This is an interrogation, and a disrespectful one at that. The younger host rolled her eyes. Oh, here we go. The moment someone asks you real questions, you play the victim card. Victim card. Reba's voice was sharp now. I've survived in this industry for over 40 years. I've faced real criticism, real challenges, real obstacles. What I won't tolerate is sitting here while three people who clearly have an agenda try to tear me down under the guise of an interview. We don't have an agenda, Jenna said, but her tone lacked conviction. Don't you? Reba challenged. Because from where I'm sitting, it seems like you brought me here specifically to humiliate me, and I'm wondering why. The silence that followed was deafening. Jenna cleared her throat, trying to recover. Reba, I think you're misinterpreting our intentions here. We're journalists. We ask hard questions. That's our job. Your job, Reba replied, is to inform and entertain your audience, not to belittle your guests. There's a way to ask difficult questions with respect, and this isn't it. The third host finally spoke up again, her tone defensive. You know what? Maybe you're just not used to people being honest with you anymore. Maybe everyone around you just tells you what you want to hear. And maybe, Reba countered, you're confusing honesty with cruelty. They're not the same thing. We're not being cruel, Jenna protested. We're being frank. Frank, Reba said, would be asking me about my music, my process, my upcoming projects. What you're doing is trying to get me to admit that I'm washed up, that my time has passed, that I should just fade away quietly. And I'm not going to do that. So you're saying you're still as relevant as you were 20 years ago? The younger host asked, her skepticism obvious. I'm saying that relevance isn't measured by whether your daughters know who I am, Reba fired back. I've sold millions of records. I've won countless awards. I've built a legacy that will outlast whatever trend is popular this week. So yes, I'm still relevant. Maybe not to you, but to the people who matter, my fans. I absolutely am. But the numbers don't lie, Jenna insisted, tapping her notes. Your last album peaked at number 15 on the country charts. 15, Reba. That's not exactly what we'd expect from a legend. Reba's hands gripped the armrests of her chair. You keep talking about numbers like they're the only thing that matters. What about artistry? What about integrity? What about creating music that actually means something instead of just chasing streams and chart positions? Oh, so now you're too good for commercial success. The younger host scoffed. That's convenient when you're not getting it anymore. That's not what I said, Reba snapped. Don't twist my words. We're not twisting anything, Jenna said. We're just trying to understand why someone with your legacy is struggling to maintain momentum in today's market. Struggling. Reba's laugh was bitter. I'm not struggling. I'm thriving. I'm making the music I want to make, touring for fans who appreciate it, and living my life on my own terms. If that doesn't fit your narrow definition of success, that's your problem, not mine. The third host jumped back in. But you have to admit, the industry has changed. Country music isn't what it used to be. It's more pop now, more hip-hop influenced. Your style is, well, it's dated. Dated, Reba repeated, her voice dangerously quiet. My style is classic. There's a difference. Is there though? Jenna asked. Because from where we're sitting, classic just means old. The audience gasped. Even the crew members looked uncomfortable. Reba sat perfectly still for a moment, her expression unreadable. Old, she finally said. You think I'm old? That's not, Jenna started, but Reba cut her off. No, let's address this head on since we're being so honest today. You think because I'm not 25 years old? Because I don't dress like I'm going to a club? Because I actually sing about real life and real emotions instead of whatever manufactured nonsense is being pushed this week? That I'm irrelevant, that I'm old, that I should just disappear. We never said you should disappear, the younger host protested weakly. You didn't have to say it, Reba replied. It's been the subtext of every question you've asked. When are you going to retire? Why aren't you selling out arenas anymore? Don't you think younger artists deserve the spotlight? It's all code for the same thing. You're done. Move over. Make room. You're putting words in our mouths, Jenna said. Am I? Reba challenged. Then please, tell me, what was the point of this interview? What did you hope to accomplish by bringing me here and spending 20 minutes questioning my relevance, my career choices, my personal life, and my place in this industry? Jenna hesitated, clearly scrambling for an answer. We wanted to have a real conversation about the changing landscape of country music and where veteran artists fit into that. Where veteran artists fit, Reba repeated slowly. You mean where old people like me fit? Just say it plainly. You're being unfair, Jenna said, her voice rising. We're trying to have an important discussion about ageism and sexism in the music industry. Reba's eyes flashed. Don't you dare try to spin this as some kind of social commentary. You're not fighting ageism, you're perpetuating it. You're not highlighting sexism, you're participating in it. You brought me here to make me look foolish, to get a viral moment, to boost your ratings by tearing down someone who's spent 40 years building something meaningful. That's a serious accusation, the third host said. It's the truth, Reba shot back, and you know it. Every single question has been designed to put me on the defensive, to make me justify my existence in this industry, to make me prove that I still deserve to be here. Well, I don't owe you that. I don't owe anyone that. We're just doing our jobs, Jenna insisted. Your job is to interview people, not to attack them, Reba said firmly. There is a way to ask challenging questions with dignity and respect. I've done thousands of interviews over my career. I've been asked tough questions before, but I've never, and I mean never, been treated with such blatant disrespect as I have in this interview. I think you're overreacting, the younger host said dismissively. Overreacting, Reba repeated, her voice tight with controlled anger. A woman stands up for herself and suddenly she's overreacting. How predictable. Oh, don't play the gender card, Jenna said, waving her hand. This has nothing to do with you being a woman, doesn't it? Reba asked. Because I notice you don't ask male country artists when they're going to retire. You don't question their relevance when they've been in the business for decades. You celebrate their longevity. But a woman reaches a certain age and suddenly she's past her prime. She's not connecting with audiences. She should step aside. Tell me that's not sexist. You're deflecting, the third host said. We're talking about your career specifically, not making some broad statement about gender. My career specifically, Reba said, which you've spent this entire interview trying to paint as a failure. Despite the fact that I've achieved more in this industry than most people ever dream of. Despite the fact that I'm still out there performing, recording, connecting with fans. Despite the fact that I love what I do and I'm good at it. None of that matters to you because I don't fit whatever image you have of what a successful artist should look like in 2026. We never said you were a failure, Jenna protested. You didn't have to, Reba replied. Every question implied it. Every dismissive comment, every skeptical look, every time you questioned my choices or my success. You made it very clear what you think of me and my career. The silence stretched out again, thick with tension. The younger host shifted uncomfortably in her seat. The third host looked down at her notes. Jenna's smile had long since disappeared. Look, Jenna finally said, clearly trying to salvage the situation. I think there's been a miscommunication here. Has there? Reba asked coldly. Because I understood you perfectly. You think I'm washed up, irrelevant, and out of touch. You made that abundantly clear. That's not fair, Jenna said. What's not fair? Reba said, her voice rising, is inviting someone onto your show under the pretense of a friendly interview, and then ambushing them with thinly veiled insults and condescending questions. What's not fair is using your platform to tear someone down instead of building them up. What's not fair is treating a guest with such obvious contempt and then acting surprised when they call you out on it. We don't have contempt for you, the younger host said, but her tone suggested otherwise. Then why? Reba demanded. Why would you ask me if I think it's time to step back? Why would you question whether there's still a place for my kind of music? Why would you bring up my personal relationships like they have anything to do with my professional achievements? Why would you do any of that if you had even an ounce of respect for me or my career? Because people want to know, Jenna said defensively. People want to know, or you wanted to create drama, Reba challenged. Because this feels a lot more like the latter than the former. You're twisting this around, Jenna said, her frustration evident. We're the journalists here. We ask questions. That's what we do. And I'm the guest, Reba replied, standing up from her chair. And I have the right to expect basic respect and professionalism, neither of which I've received today. The camera operators looked at each other uncertainly. The audience sat in stunned silence. Jenna's eyes widened as she realized what was happening. Reba, please sit down, Jenna said quickly. Let's talk about this. We've been talking, Reba said, her voice calm but firm. And I'm done. I came here in good faith, expecting a professional interview. Instead, I've been subjected to 20 minutes of thinly disguised attacks on my age, my relevance, and my career. I won't sit here and take it anymore. You can't just leave, Jenna said, panic creeping into her voice. We're in the middle of a segment. Watch me, Reba said, reaching down to unclip her microphone. Reba, please, the third host pleaded. Let's just take a breath and start over. Start over. Reba looked at her incredulously. so you can ask me more insulting questions. So you can dig a little deeper into why I'm apparently not good enough anymore. No thank you. The younger host stood up as well, her defensive posture clear. You know what? If you can't handle a few tough questions, maybe that says something about where you really are in your career. Reba stopped mid-motion, her hand still on the microphone pack. She turned slowly to face the younger host, her expression steely. Tough questions are not the same as disrespectful questions. And the fact that you can't tell the difference is concerning for someone in your profession. I know the difference, the younger host shot back. And I know the difference between someone who's confident in their work and someone who's defensive because they know the criticism is valid. The criticism would be valid if it were based on facts, Reba said, her voice hard. But you've done nothing but speculate, assume, and project your own biases onto my career. You've taken a few cherry-picked statistics and tried to build a narrative that I'm failing. But I'm not failing. I'm succeeding on my own terms. And that seems to really bother you. It doesn't bother me at all, the younger host said. I just think our audience deserves honesty. Honesty, Reba's voice rose. You want honesty? Here's some honesty for you. You're young, you're new to this industry, and you think that gives you the right to talk down to people who've been doing this since before you were born. You mistake rudeness for boldness, condescension for insight. You're so focused on trying to seem edgy and provocative that you've forgotten the basic principle of interviewing. Treat your guests like human beings. The younger host's face flushed red. I'm just asking the questions that everyone's thinking. Are you, Reba, challenged? Or are you asking the questions that you think will make you look tough and uncompromising? Because there's a big difference between serving your audience and serving your own ego. Jenna tried to intervene. Okay, I think we all need to just calm down here. Don't tell me to calm down, Reba said sharply, turning to Jenna. You started this. You set the tone for this entire disaster of an interview. You asked the first insulting question. You questioned my relevance. You brought up my personal life inappropriately. You created this hostile environment, and now you want me to calm down because I'm finally pushing back. I was just trying to have a meaningful conversation, Jenna said weakly. Meaningful? Reba scoffed. There was nothing meaningful about asking me if your daughters know who I am. There was nothing meaningful about suggesting I'm too old to connect with audiences. There was nothing meaningful about any of this. You know what the real issue is? Reba continued, her voice gaining strength. The real issue is that women in this industry are constantly being told they have an expiration date. We're constantly being asked when we're going to step aside, when we're going to let the next generation take over, when we're going to admit that our time is up. And it's exhausting. It's demeaning. And I'm tired of pretending it's okay. Nobody's saying you have an expiration date, Jenna protested. Then what exactly were you saying? Reba demanded. When you questioned whether there's still a place for my kind of music, what did you mean? When you asked if I felt left behind by the industry, what were you implying? When you brought up my tour venues and my album sales, what point were you trying to make? Because it all adds up to the same thing. You think I'm done. That's your interpretation, Jenna said. It's the only logical interpretation, Reba countered. You can try to backtrack now. You can try to claim you were just asking innocent questions, but we both know what this was. This was an attempt to get me to admit defeat, to say that yes, I'm not as successful as I used to be. Yes, maybe it is time to retire. Well, I'm not going to do that. Not for you, not for anyone. So you're just going to keep going even if nobody wants to hear from you anymore? The younger host asked snidely. Reba's eyes narrowed. Clearly, my fans want to hear from me, considering they show up to my concerts, they buy my albums, they stream my music, they support me. Just because your narrow view of success doesn't include what I'm doing doesn't mean I'm not successful. The third host tried to redirect. Can we please just sit down and finish this conversation like adults? Adults show each other respect, Reba said firmly. Adults listen to understand, not just to attack. Adults recognize when they've crossed a line and apologize. Have any of you done that? Have any of you acknowledged that maybe, just maybe, you approached this interview the wrong way? Silence. None of the hosts said anything. That's what I thought, Reba said, finishing unclipping her microphone and setting it on the chair. You want me to be the bigger person, to sit back down and let you continue to disrespect me, all in the name of good television. But I have too much self-respect for that. This is incredibly unprofessional, Jenna said, her voice tight. Reba let out a short, harsh laugh. You want to talk to me about professionalism? You, who spent this entire interview trying to tear me down. You who asked inappropriate questions about my personal life. You, who clearly had an agenda from the moment I walked in here. That's rich. You're being unreasonable. The younger host said. Unreasonable would be staying here and continuing to subject myself to this treatment, Reba said. What I'm being is self-respecting. I know my worth. I know what I've accomplished. I know what I bring to this industry. And I don't need validation from three people who clearly don't understand or appreciate any of it. Fine, Jenna said, frustration evident in her voice. If you want to walk off, but don't expect us to paint you as the victim here. I don't need you to paint me as anything, Reba said calmly. The people who matter, my fans, my peers, the people who actually know and respect my work. They'll understand exactly what happened here. She picked up her bag from beside the chair, her movements deliberate and controlled. You can't just leave in the middle of a live segment, Jenna said desperately. I can, and I am, Reba replied. You wanted a moment. You got one? Just not the one you were hoping for. She turned and started walking toward the exit. The cameras followed her, capturing every step. The audience remained completely silent, stunned by what they were witnessing. Reba, Jenna called out. Reba, please. But Reba didn't stop, didn't turn around, didn't acknowledge the plea. She walked off that set with her head held high, leaving three hosts scrambling to figure out how to fill the rest of their segment in an audience that had just witnessed one of the most dramatic moments in talk show history. The whole exchange lasted less than 30 minutes, but it was 30 minutes that nobody who watched would ever forget. It was a masterclass in standing up for yourself, in refusing to accept disrespect, in knowing your worth even when others try to diminish it. So what do you think about how Reba handled this situation? Did she do the right thing by walking off? Or should she have stayed and tried to work through it? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And make sure you subscribe because we're going to keep bringing you these kinds of stories that get people talking. What would you have done if you were in Reba's position?